So it's been a while since I did my first look into the science behind the Star Wars franchise. In the past, I've looked at cloning seen throughout the Clone Wars, and seeing how clones could be genetically modified to produce the unique clones seen throughout the Bad Batch. But with Kenobi streaming new episodes every week, I've been thinking, and it's time to delve into the science behind something that can be seen throughout the Star Wars franchise. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Science Of, the show where I take a look at the science behind your favourite games, shows and more. Today, we're back investigating the science behind Star Wars, and seeing as the latest Disney Plus series is halfway through, as of writing this video, we should take a look at some Star Wars technology that features heavily throughout the franchise. Today, we're taking a look at the miracle healing substance that's healed Jedi, clones and Chiss, from the High Republic to the post-Empire. I am of course talking about Bacta, and the Bacta tank, which has appeared surprisingly often in the new series. Throughout the time of the Galactic Empire, Anakin Skywalker used the Bacta tank to lessen the pain caused by his injuries on Mustafar. And far after the fall of the Empire, a flex poly Bacta suit was developed that could be worn by patients to treat them with an artificial Bacta. A pretty good improvement, despite the fact that it looks like one of the Simpsons jacuzzi suits. Bacta tanks have been used throughout the franchise to heal multiple generations of galactic heroes and villains. This unusual treatment was developed by the Vratrix, an insectoid species from the planet Thyfera, and it consists of a mixture of Kavam and Alazi bacteria combined with Ambori fluid and a type of barley known as Vratraxia renanicus. All of this knowledge comes from the second issue of the High Republic comic released in 2021, and unfortunately there isn't much else we know about it, with it only being mentioned in passing. In the past, we've taken a look at immunology through the science of cells at work, but we've not looked at many medical treatments for cuts and grazes before, and definitely haven't dived into anything as serious as Anakin's injuries as seen throughout the Kenobi series. Bacta is able to do a lot more than your typical medicine. It acts as an all-in-one treatment, able to regrow fingernails, fix broken bones, mend cuts, soothe burns, and other injuries. In today's video, we're going to take a look at what kind of treatments are similar to this Bacta, and how bacteria could be used to help treatment. So we know that Bacta liquid features two varieties of bacteria, which we can assume help the healing function of the Bacta tank. There are many different types of bacteria that have been proven to help fight against infection, and these are called probiotics. But before we see how probiotics could help the natural healing process, let's outline what that process actually is. When it comes to cuts and wounds of the skin, we have to take into account that the epidermis has its own microbiome, which contributes to the skin barrier and is incredibly important in maintaining human life, providing significant protection from external threats whilst enhancing homeostasis. When the skin continuity is disrupted by a cut or a shot, a complex mechanism of the skin that heals the wound is initiated. Initially, lymphatic fluid and blood pours out of the cut, and during this process homeostasis occurs, which causes the aggregation of platelets, which clump together with the release of adenosine 5-diphosphate to form a blood clot that plugs up the damaged site. After this, there's an inflammatory process that begins with chemotaxis bringing white blood cells and thrombocytes to the damaged area. Alongside the platelets, these cells release mediators, cytokines and growth factors that promote the degradation of collagen and produce new vessels to feed oxygen and nutrients to the damaged site. All of these processes work at the same time, but in a very synchronized fashion, with platelets releasing mediators like serotonin and histamine, which increase cellular permeability. Platelet-derived growth factors attract fibroblasts and alongside transforming growth factors, which enhance their division and multiplication. These fibroblasts in turn synthesize new collagen. Inflammatory cells like neutrophils, monocytes and endothelial cells adhere to the fibrin scaffold formed by platelet activation, where they go on to decontaminate the wound. After around 5 days, the fibroblasts have started to lay down new collagen and chemicals known as glycoaminoglycans. These form the core of the wound and help to stabilize it. Once stable, reepithelialization starts to occur, with cells from the edge of the wound moving to form a thin layer of epithelial cells. This thin layer is made thicker, with more durable layers of cells that bridge the wound over time. After this, the area requires new blood vessels, which are produced in a process called neovascularization, which forms more blood vessels through two different mechanisms. Angiogenesis, which produces new blood vessels extended from existing ones, and vasculogenesis, which forms new blood vessels from endothelial progenitor cells. After this, there's a long remodeling process that can last as long as 12 months. This slow process is regulated by fibroblasts and results in a breakdown of the matrix produced by platelets by metalloproteinases. This results in scar tissue that's roughly 80% as strong as the original tissue. So now we know how the human body would normally heal from a wound. But what would happen if we were to introduce some probiotics into the situation? How could they help? Well, research into this area is pretty new, so there's not a huge amount of research to draw from. But that doesn't mean there's none whatsoever. It just so happens that they've been carried out on mice so far and haven't been tested on humans. Let's take a look at a CXC motif chemokine ligand 10, or to give it its simpler name, CXCL10. The release of these chemokines by neutrophils is triggered by commensal bacteria that colonize skin wounds. Once expressed, CXCL10 recruits plasmacytoid dendritic cells to act as support for antimicrobial proteins, which kill microbiota from around a wound, leading to the formation of a CXCL10 bacterial DNA complex. These CXCL10 bacterial DNA complexes also activate plasmacytoid dendritic cells to produce type 1 interferon. These are polypeptides that are typically secreted by infected cells, and this accelerates wound closure by triggering skin inflammation and early T-cell independent wound repair responses. These T-cells rapidly accumulate on the site of injury and keep local immune responses under control so that no excessive immune responses develop that could cause additional damage to the wound. This immune regulatory damage limiting function of the regulatory T-cells is complemented by an immune-dependent damage resolving direct role in wound healing. In this process, the regulatory T-cells at the site of injury release growth factors such as epidermal growth factor like growth factor amphiregulin. This amphiregulin activates transforming growth factor beta, which in turn induces the differentiation of local parasite populations in myofibroblasts, which produce extracellular matrix components that are essential for the restoration of blood barrier functions and the restoration of tissue homeostasis. So from that bacterial DNA complex, we could increase the healing rate in mice. But it's not exactly the rapid increase that we see in the Bacta tank, which could heal someone to full health in around 2 days dependent on its strength. So we can't put together a Bacta liquid similar to the Bacta tank. Oh well, what a shame. That's the video over, nothing else to say. Oh but wait, there is a medical healing chamber that submerges patients and increases wound healing. But what kind of magical fluid could they be enveloping themselves in if what we've looked at so far is true? Well, it's very simple. It's oxygen. But not just any ordinary oxygen from the air. This is a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. These may have inspired Star Wars Bacta tanks. They're very simple in theory. They're chambers where a patient is exposed to 100% oxygen at a greater pressure to that of the normal atmosphere, typically 1.4. This kind of treatment has been around since the early 20th century, and it's been proven to enhance the wound healing process, with wound sizes being reduced significantly after multiple treatments. This treatment isn't perfect. Naturally, being in an enclosed environment for long periods above normal atmospheric pressure can have some negative side effects. Boyle's law states that the volume of gas at a fixed temperature is inversely proportionate to the ambient pressure, so lowering ambient pressure increases gas volume and increasing gas pressure lowers gas volume. These effects of pressure are experienced within pathological ear cavities and can result in something called middle ear barotrauma. MEB, if not treated, can lead to a swelling of the middle ear, and in rare cases it can be transmitted to the inner ear, with the risk of oval window membranes and the impairment of inner ear functions, causing vertigo and sensorineural hearing loss. And it's not just the pressure that's a problem. Whilst being in a 100% oxygen environment leads to increased wound healing, it can also result in arterial oxygen tensions way higher than they should be. Hyperbaric oxygen treatment has its therapeutic benefits through controlled oxidative stress, but even so, oxygen toxicity can occur. This will often be exhibited through an oxygen toxicity seizure. These seizures often look like localized muscular twitching, but eventually that would spread and a phase of convulsions would begin. The reason behind these seizures isn't readily understood, but it appears to be the direct result of oxygen toxicity. The increased reactive oxygen species and radical intermediates act with the neuronal cell plasma membrane. This causes lipid peroxidation at the plasma membrane, resulting in a change of the brain's electrical activity. Nitric oxide has been implicated as a mediator for central nervous system oxygen toxicity through the formation of peroxynitrate. In addition, there's a vascular dilation secondary to the nitric oxide, which counteracts the cerebral vasoconstriction normally seen secondary to hypoxia. All in all, this chamber-based healing method is effective, and it could certainly assist in the healing of many injuries sustained throughout the Star Wars franchise. But even so, it would require multiple treatments over the course of months, rather than just a quick dunk and heal in the Bacta tank. So there we go. At the moment, we can't produce anything close to the miraculous healing seen throughout the Star Wars Bacta tank, but in a few hundred years, who knows, we might be able to produce similar effects in mice. And don't forget that this is just the impact that these bacteria have upon surface wounds and cuts. This doesn't seem to illustrate the impact that they would have upon any burns or damage caused by the many sci-fi weapons seen throughout the Star Wars galaxy, which will often cauterize the wounds they produce. This is far from my last opportunity to take a look at the science behind Star Wars. In the future, I wouldn't mind taking a look at the science behind the energy shields seen throughout the prequel trilogy, looking at the droidecar and gun guns. And even then, there's science behind the evolution of Star Wars species, looking at how different aliens may be adapted for survival on their homeworlds. In any case, I'm definitely going to be coming back to this series, and it certainly doesn't look like Star Wars is going anywhere anytime soon, with a ton of new Disney Plus series just announced. As always, if you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to help combat the ever-changing and frustrating YouTube algorithm, then make sure you share the video to help my channel grow. If you have any scientific subjects or topics that you'd like to see me cover in the future, then please tell me in the comments down below. As well as that, follow me on Twitter to get updates on the latest science of videos, and join my Discord for chats about science, gaming and more. But until then, this has been the Science of Star Wars. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. If you're looking for game-based content, then you can join me over on Twitch, where I livestream 3 times a week playing all manner of games suggested by the community. Or if you want to support the channel even further, then you could also contribute to my Patreon, where you'll get behind the scenes access to the creation of all videos, as well as being able to vote on what the next Science of video will be.